And shalom. Welcome to Ancient Secrets, the Zoomcast, where you can meet God's actual cast. I'm Rabbi Flip of Congregation Micah, broadcasting from the Buckle of the Bible Belt, Nashville, Tennessee, here to introduce you to the theological heroes of our past, so that we might glean a little practical wisdom for the present. After each interview, our guests will reveal their true identity, a little bit about their own theology, as well as the missions of the organizations they've dedicated their lives to serving. So put on your imagination caps. You're about to meet one of the greatest theological figures of all time. Born in Babylon before the Common Era and living into the first century, his legacy is far-reaching. He served as head of the Sanhedrin, the ancient rabbinic tribunal, and to this day, he maintains a prominent place in the Passover Seder, if you like a good sandwich. His actual name and his many wise statements adorn everything from the title of books to contemporary organizations. His quotes are even included on Dr. Bronner's quirky soap bottle labels. And yet, he is renowned less for his legal rulings than for his kindness, his patience, and his ethics. We welcome to the program Rabbi Hillel the Elder.
Why can't we be friends? Why can't we be friends? Why can't we be friends? Why can't we be friends?
What an honor to have you with us today.
Thank you so much. But when did they start calling me an elder?
It's meant as a term of honor, and you were born before the turn of the century, the first century, that is. Many actually believe you were a contemporary of Jesus. Did you know him? Study with him?
Yes, I knew him. We met a few times. He was a young man, maybe a little naive, but he showed much promise as a disciple. He just didn't always quote his sources accurately, if you don't mind me saying so.
What do you mean?
Well, in the New Testament, Luke 6:37, Jesus says, "Do not judge and you will not be judged. Do not condemn and you will not be condemned." It's very nice. But of course, what I told him was not to pass judgment upon thy neighbor until thou hast put thyself in his place. Did he quote this, elder? Nope. Hard feelings here. Our message was the same. Our audiences ended up being a little different.
There's no doubt that you strongly influenced many facets of Jesus' theological and ethical teachings. It's another reason we're so excited you're joining us today on the program. You have such a deep knowledge of how to live a good, ethical life. And we're curious how that translates into living through this pandemic.
Rabbi Flip, thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. And thank you also for having me and hosting this important conversation about theology. I believe strongly that everyone should have an opportunity to learn. So thank you for bringing our traditions, our wisdom to life during this time of social distancing.
Yes, education, such an important Jewish value. You founded a whole school of law, the House of Hillel. How did that come about?
Well, as a child, I came from very humble beginnings. My family was so poor, they could not afford for me to go to school. So I climbed onto the top of the study hall and I sat near a skylight so I could hear the lessons being taught inside. One morning, my body must have been blocking the light from above and casting a shadow below. When the students inside looked up and they saw me, I had fallen asleep and I almost froze to death. When they came up to get me, I was covered in snow. I vowed not just to get an education for myself, but to do whatever I could to make it available to everyone.
Wow, powerful story. Because of you, Talmudic commentators derived that even poverty should not be considered an obstacle to Torah study and learning.
Absolutely. But education does cost money. Budgets for schools, organizations, even families, they are sacred documents. People spend money, time, and energy on what they value most. Let me ask everyone watching, what are the causes and commitments that inspire you, that you work for, struggle for, dare I say, even sacrifice for? During this hard time, when we are all sheltered, we must practice self-care and continue to advocate for ourselves. Otherwise, who will advocate on our behalf? Additionally, we must also advocate on behalf of others. Otherwise, what are we? And what will we become after the pandemic?
And if not now, when?
Exactly. Some helpful terms might be intact and in touch. What do you, the listener, need to stay intact, unharmed, undamaged, whole? Can you make those priority without losing touch of what others need?
I hear you with regard to values, but let's be practical. What does caring about each other really look like to you?
Rabbi Flip, each of us carries a circle of concern around ourselves, a circle of caring. For some, like teenagers and college students, that circle of caring ends at the tip of their nose. The bigger your circle of concern, the more human you become and the more you get out of life. You think you are so independent? No one depends on you? Life's greatest dignity comes from recognizing that you are needed, that something is asked of you. It is not what you get out of life, it's what life gets out of you. Jews earn significance in our readiness to respond and to be responsible, to be able to respond to ourselves and others, to care, to give, to engage, to help, to heal. What are you doing to become wiser, deeper, more compassionate? How are you becoming a better person than you were yesterday? Everyone must answer these questions for themselves. And the pandemic is no excuse for not to work on our characters. It is, in fact, an invitation.
Can we talk about your rival for a moment, please? You are famous for disagreements with the House of Shammai. History records hundreds of disputes, which generally reveal you favoring a more lenient opinion and the House of Shammai favoring a stricter one. And while your rulings are usually favored, in keeping with the Jewish tradition, both opinions are recorded in the Talmud. Can you please talk about why that is?
Oh, our students used to really get into it. It was like a Vanderbilt versus University of Tennessee football game. Each of our disciples argued for years, saying the law was in accordance with their views. Ultimately, a bat kol, a heavenly voice, was heard declaring both opinions to be the words of the living God. It took God to solve this argument. And ever since that ruling, students have been more agreeable and civil. There's a humble genius that the Jewish tradition preserves, differing and even dissenting opinions. It keeps it open for interpretation, regardless of location or time. I see that in a lot of the work I do now. Recognition that there are multiple ways to pray, to act, to observe, to live a Jewish life, and all expressions are accepted. It boils down to the notion of not judging our fellows until we are in their place.
Is that why you were so gracious to the individual who first went to Shammai, agreeing to be converted if he could teach him the entire Torah while standing on one foot? Legend has it, Shammai sent him away, but you, Hillel, welcomed him in.
Well, that which is hateful to you, do not do to another. That is the entire Torah. That's what I told him, but I also challenged him to go forth and study more. Life, Judaism, these things don't fit on a bumper sticker. The reason people respect me is because I tried to do the Jewish thing. And the Jewish thing is to be gracious even in the face of provocation. This coronavirus is provoking us all. Can we each remain patient? Can we empathize with people who have lost their jobs? Can we, at the very least, avoid doing harmful things to others, things that we wouldn't want done to us?
The golden rule. You spoke it first. In fact, many of our sacred Jewish principles are attributed to you in the early chapters of Pirkei Avot, the section of the Talmud concerned primarily with matters of ethics. Is it why your name was chosen in 1923 for Jewish campus groups?
I'm honored that my name is equated with the quest for higher learning, and that it is respected in the Christian and larger interfaith community as well.
I'm honored you're here with us, and we'd like to reveal who you really are. But first, a short word from our sponsor.
A proud sponsor of Ancient Secrets, Congregation Micah is a vibrant and progressive synagogue serving all of Middle Tennessee, offering creative and diverse ways to celebrate Jewish life using the practices and beliefs of modern Reform Judaism as its foundation.
Welcome back. Originally from Houston, Texas, Ari Dubin began working as executive director of Vanderbilt Hillel in July of 2005. He received his BA in psychology from American Jewish University and master's in education in educational psychology from University of Texas. Before coming to Vanderbilt Hillel, Ari was the assistant director of Duke Hillel, the youth and campus director at the JCC in San Antonio, and director of teen services at Metro West JCC. Ari and his wife, Abby, live with their two daughters, Davi and Emmy, a colleague, a Micah member, and a friend. I appreciate you indulging us midrashically. Now, Ari, if you don't mind, if you could answer a few more questions so we can get to know the real you. I'd like to begin by asking, what is it that makes you sort of get out of bed in the morning? And is there anything that keeps you up at night?
Well, the answer in both is probably the same. The dog or my daughters is pretty much a guarantee to do one or both on any given day. But less flippantly, I love the work that I do. I love working on campus, the dynamism of being on campus with all of the diversity of opportunities and challenges that it represents. And I really feel very blessed to have those opportunities to connect with students from all over the country who have such different perspectives on life and values and how they connect to themselves, to other people, and to Judaism.
How did you originally get into doing Hillel work? When did you realize you loved working with that kind of age and demographic specifically?
Well, when I was in graduate school, I was originally planning to, I was an aspiring future head of school of a Jewish day school. And then I realized that really wasn't what I wanted, that I loved being on the college campus. I loved being in that environment, but that the public or parish professor dynamic really wasn't for me. And when I got to the Hillel world after the JCC, it was quickly perfect. I realized that it was the combination of all the things that I wanted in terms of direct service, as well as that college environment and the challenge of working with this age group has really sustained me.
Mm. I know that it's not just college-age kids that you work with. Do you want to talk anything about the other connections in the community, or specifically with your board or national connections you may have that help you do your work?
Yes, we have a board that is both local as well as national. The national element of our board is mostly made up of parents or alums. We have a growing network of young alumni. Vanderbilt was a place that had almost no Jews up until the late 90s. And so our alumni network is still quite young. And that's something that continues to grow. I like to refer to alumni who were at Vanderbilt when I started as young alumni. So the number of young alumni expands every year. Maybe some of them are a little older than young alumni now, but then so am I. So I guess it works out. But we've had, it's a really rich element of my work to be able to relationship building with people who I knew when they were 18 years ago, and now they've moved on to very different kinds of lives.
Yeah, I find the same. It's kind of fun to be able to be there when kids are born, and then there's a bar mitzvah and a wedding, and it does mean we are getting older. Um,
Yes.
I want to ask that uh, if you were to, coronavirus stuff aside, just think about some of the greatest fulfillments or the greatest challenges in the kind of work that you do. And my guess is that not everybody has college-age kids. They're a little out of touch about what's happening on the Vanderbilt campus in general. They only hear anecdotally or maybe something through the press. And so any insights you would share just about the challengingness of the work and what it is exactly you do for the Jewish community and Jewish students on campus?
Well, I always define our task at Vanderbilt as building Jewish communities, one student at a time. Every individual has their own picture of what Judaism is and what they're looking for from Judaism. And each of us tend to compartmentalize Judaism. You know, we take it out of the box when we're doing something specific, whether that's lighting Hanukkah candles or Shabbat or having a Passover Seder. But the rest of the time, we don't really think about our Judaism. And on campus, what we really seek to do is show our students that Judaism has something important and meaningful to say to regarding all of the things that they care about. And if it's politics, if it's the environment, if it's social justice issue, if it's economics, or as I like to use the standby underwater basket weaving, whatever it is that is important to them, we want to figure out ways to show that Judaism has something meaningful to say, whether it was through Rabbi Hillel or somebody else.
Yeah, beautiful, great. And any specific challenges, specifically things that the Micah community or the larger Jewish community in Nashville could help with?
Well, there's always ways that we can connect students to the local community, to identify opportunities for them to grow in their careers and in their experiences, to connect them to Nashville in the hopes that they will find a home here long term. We have a growing number of students who leave and then come back for grad school or come back after they've been established professionally and move here. And we want them to find a really vibrant home.
Terrific. Well, we just want to support your work. I've got maybe 2 or 3 more questions. I'm curious if you have any insights, they can be of Jewish nature, whatever, anything you're doing, you people here are doing, that just would be helpful, spiritual practices or anything of any nature that during this time of social distancing, you know, ways of staying connected we may have not have thought of.
We've at Hillel, we've been doing a lot with virtual services, which I know Micah has been doing as well, and those things are great, but it's hard. It's hard to find that full value there. We've experimented with doing recordings and even like a choose your own service experience where our student leaders did multiple versions of each of the prayers, and people could go through them like on YouTube and they could pick the tune and the version that fit them. And that was nice. But ultimately what we have found is that people want to connect and they want to be it's more about being in person. The experiences that we create, whether it's the learning experiences or the services, doing them live is what people want. And interestingly, one of the most successful things we've done since everyone had to leave campus, what has been ethics classes. And these are classes that one of our staff taught that we were doing beforehand with students in the room together, and now it's shifted to being online. But it's continued, and it's been a really vibrant anchor point for students and for us.
I think you're correct that people want to stay connected. I think it's another reason we're trying to do something like this, and I thank you for participating in it. And I think that there is always a yearning. It's why I hope for some theology to understand where some of this comes from and what some of the infrastructure of our Jewish community sort of looks like and how to best be supportive of it. I have a question. I'll let you reflect for just a second. You've become the go-to expert on Israel, which I know is a changing subject all the time. So I'm just looking for one insight you might share. At the time of this taping of the show, we're forming a new government. Who knows what that could look like with all the uncertainty out there as it is. But I literally, when Lori and my wife and I are like, I don't know what's happening. All right, just someone call Ari. We'll have like an Ari briefing. So if there's anything you could share, just in general, we're both big Israel fans and supportive, and things again that we could do. What do you got?
Sure. So Israel has gone a year through election cycle after election cycle because they couldn't settle on a permanent government, and the reason for that really boiled down to there is a camp of folks who thought that Netanyahu should not be able to serve as prime minister while under indictment, and then there was a section of the Israeli body politic that said no, it's fine for him to continue serving as prime minister. And that seemed to be the dividing line through all of the campaigns and elections until we hit this emergency, and which was at least the stated reason why Benny Gantz decided to break with his partners, and he agreed to form a government with Bibi Netanyahu and Likud and the right-wing bloc. The thinking was it was all going to be about Bibi, when in reality it ended up being, in terms of the coalition agreements that they signed in order to form the partnership, the sticking points were more about the issues related to annexation in the West Bank, as well as issues with the judiciary and how Supreme Court justices in particular are picked. And while the question of Bibi Netanyahu is part of both of those issues, both issues are really much more fundamental to what Israel will be in 10 and 20 years, and not so much about Benjamin Netanyahu specifically.
Perfect and well said, like never a surprise. Listen, we at Congregation Micah thank you for what you do to serve our community. It is not an easy job working with college-age kids and beyond, and you, I know, do it very, very well. Our whole city is lucky to have you, and anything we can do to be supportive, we're certainly there for you. We know those kids represent our future. We love what you do with them, and we hope you go from strength to strength.
Thank you. You as well. Micah has been such an invaluable partner for our Hillel over the years, and we are so very grateful. And for me personally, having Micah has been such an important part of my experience in Nashville and as part of the Jewish community here. I can't really imagine my time here without including Micah in that. It's been a key cornerstone of our family, and we're very grateful to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for saying. And thank you to all of our viewers out there. We look forward to having you join us another time on Congregation Micah's Ancient Secrets, Past Wisdom for the Present Pandemic.
Zoom, zoom, zoom.